I used to do lots of things.
I used to do things and I'd say things and Jesus I was evil. Take things and break things and Jesus I was evil. I never shook babies.
Hey.
Hello there.
Hey, did you hear about the sequel to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
No.
Yeah, so Tarantino's writing it. He's not directing it. David Fincher is directing it though, and Brad Pitt. So it's gonna be kind of a spin-off. So Brad Pitt is reprising his character.
Really?
Yeah, I'm dead serious.
Oh, that's what's funny is I was about to share a movie news with you.
Oh,
You
what's
beat me
that?
to it.
Hmm.
No, but that's really interesting. I had no idea, and I love that. I mean, of course, I love Tarantino directing it, but Fincher, I mean, that's very cool. It's gonna be
definitely.
It's gonna be very different. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
When is that? So that's not even like they're like still writing that, right? That's
It was just announced like a week ago. It's in development with David Fincher directing and Brad Pitt starring, based on a screenplay by Tarantino. The project's being set up at Netflix, where Fincher has a first look deal.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's right. I bet you that's how Tarantino's gonna get past his. Like, didn't he say he's only gonna make 10 movies or something?
Right.
But he's just gonna do this. He's gonna like write a bunch of movies, and then like any director is going to direct those movies. So it's like it's a loophole.
Yeah, exactly.
My movie news was maybe this is like not news. I'd heard it's happening, and that there were like some photos leaked a while ago, but 28 years later is coming out in like 2 months.
Oh yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
I didn't like. I saw the. I just watched the trailer, and it looks sweet. And I thought it was going to say like, I don't know, November or 2026 or something like that, and it was like June 20th. I'm like, holy crap!
Wow,
that is crazy. That's soon.
Yeah, you're so far behind, dude.
Really?
Yeah. I heard that the first teaser came out, and there's a zombie in that because Cillian Murphy was in the first one.
Yeah,
and so there were rumors that he's going to be in the upcoming one. And so there's a zombie in the first trailer that came out months ago that looks kind of like him. So people were speculating that zombie was like, oh, that's what happened to Cillian Murphy's character. He's show up as a zombie.
Yeah, well, he's in this one too.
Yeah,
very obviously him.
Yeah, but that was debunked. He's not.
That was debunked.
Yeah.
Oh well, that. I don't know. That zombie, they kind of focused on him, and it really looked like him.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's. I do like those movies. Are you a fan of the 28 series?
Yeah, I've only seen the first one. I haven't seen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I haven't seen the other ones.
The second one is okay. It's kind of dumb. Like what happens, but it's entertaining. Like it's scary. I mean, they kind of started the fast zombie craze.
Yeah.
Definitely terrifying.
Yeah.
The first one's iconic though. Like that first one is so iconic. And like looking back when you rewatch it, you realize kind of how low their budget was. How you like don't really see zombies eat people because they don't think they had the money for it. So it's more about the quick cuts and the speed, and that was all very new, and the noises, but there's not a lot of like graphic effects.
Right. And then they had to shoot because they shot a good chunk of it in London, but they had to shoot like crazy hours when there was no traffic.
Yeah.
Okay, we only have 30 minutes to shoot an empty London bridge
those were really cool scenes. Anyway, so that was my movie news. Can you hear my cat purring? Because I can like hear it in my headset.
Oh.
No, now it's licking himself. Give me this.
I can hear something. I can hear. Oh, that's paper.
Yeah.
Well, it's other movie news. The Fantastic Four trailer dropped. The second one. Well, that actor with the super deep voice who's always in A24 movies.
Ralph Ineson.
Yes, he's playing the main villain. Yeah.
I do like Ralph Ineson, big fan.
Yeah, and because the character he's playing is called Galactus, and he's a giant like planet-eating villain. So I'm like, oh, that's perfect. That's the type of voice I want for that character. So
yeah, he's great. What did I watched him in something recently? I can't remember. He was in. I'm blanking.
Nice.
Something I watched recently. He was in the Creator or whatever that was, but it wasn't that. I don't know. It'll come to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, he played a priest in something too, but I don't remember exactly what it was. I watched a lot of like horror Catholic movies.
Yeah.
Okay. So today we're talking about totally different stuff.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Chris Rufo, who we talk pretty regularly about on the show.
Yeah.
And Harvard and Trump.
Yeah. So this is from an article that you sent me from the Free Press called Christopher Rufo, The Right is Winning the Battle Over Higher Education. Yeah. Civil rights laws have always been a weapon. It's just that conservatives have finally decided to wield them. Yeah, this has been an interesting, a pretty aggressive move on the Trump administration's part of taking out this DEI crap. And so yeah, yeah. So you want to lead us into it?
Sure. Yeah, it's not very long, and then maybe we'll spark some more conversation. But yeah. So I mean, we've talked about Chris Rufo. I'm a big fan overall, and this is like it's in here. So I'll start reading it. In 2020, the author Christopher Caldwell changed the conversation with his book, The Age of Entitlement: America Since the 60s. The book argued that the civil rights regime established in the 1960s marked a fundamental departure from America's constitutional tradition. Though launched with the noble intention of stopping racial discrimination, Caldwell argued, the Civil Rights Act and the bureaucracy it spawned gradually consumed core American freedoms and became a vehicle for entrenching left-wing racialist ideology throughout American institutions. In the decades that followed, the rights response was marked by ambivalence. Some libertarians called for repealing the Civil Rights Act, but like many libertarian proposals, this was never a political possibility given the act's broad public support. The establishment right, meanwhile, largely suppressed its private misgivings. Republicans repeatedly voted to expand the civil rights regime, further embedding dubious concepts like disparate impact theory, the idea that discrimination can occur even inadvertently, into law. And by the way, this is written by this is by Chris Rufo.
Yep.
Okay. Now all of this has changed. After mounting a successful fight against DEI, the political right has come to accept that if there must be a civil rights regime, it should be one of its own making. Rather than continue to defer to left-wing interpretations of civil rights law, the right can now advance a framework grounded in colorblind equality, not racialist ideology. So, yeah, I mean, this was, to me, just seems like the very obvious route to go, and I'm kind of surprised that it took this long. I think he makes a good point. It's like, yeah, a lot of libertarian ideas, they don't get taken seriously, and they're also like not popular overall. Like people hear, and some of that might be positioning and marketing and all of that, but like people like civil rights. Like they like, America likes the idea of civil rights.
Right.
So saying you want to get rid of this, especially what it came from, is like, that's just not going to be popular. People don't like, however, and he's going to touch on this, I believe, in this article, if not, I'll add it, but like how the overexpansion of it and the quotas and affirmative action, like that's not only not popular in America, that's not popular in like blue America. Yeah. In states like California and Washington, like this stuff gets voted down hard. Like it's not popular at all. It's very academic. It goes against at the same. So it's like this goes both ways. As much as Americans, maybe it took us a while to get there. A while is relative, but to get to civil rights, like we also don't like, we like civil rights, but we also like the idea of people being equal. And that equality is oftentimes about opportunity, which is really what I think was sold to people. And I don't mean sold as in like it was deceptive. Right. Like I think that is really what it was about at first. Yeah. And for a while, it's that people like to push things, and a lot of academics and other interest groups, they need a purpose. They need a telos to exist. So they have to push stuff, and then this gets taken up by prestigious organizations and institutions, and that's how we get to let's say the Great Awakening. Some sparks, some Flint sparks ignite, like George Floyd, and we get this craziness. Or like, I mean, it started even at the end. I think really a lot of this can be taken back to the second Obama term. It's like Obama is a second term president.
Right.
He's lost Congress. Although Obama was very good at getting himself elected in 2008 and 2012, Republicans did extremely well in 2010 and 2014. So he does a bunch of this kind of crap they couldn't do because he wanted to get elected into 2012. So he became much more liberal. His administration became much more liberal. And that's why it's not surprised that a lot of people who study this stuff and write about this stuff, like I think it's Jonathan Haidt, they taught like really the impetus of all this. The modern version of it is like 2013, like 2012, 13, 14. Like that's really where this stuff starts happening in the second Obama term. Going back, of course, you keep going back and get to the Frankfurt School and the 60s and all of that. But really what we're living through is a product of the early 2010s. Trump gets elected. That's another wave. George Floyd, that's another wave. And then there's the backlash. So anyway, so do you have anything to add, or should I keep?
Yeah. Something else I want to add too is that he's exposing the interesting dynamic of the sort of left-right distinction, where it seems like there's been this sort of weird realignment, because what he was saying where it's like, and he positions it as a right-wing cause, which is, advocating for colorblind, a more colorblind approach to in universities. And it's like, that to me was always like the sort of the North Star of liberalism. And it seemed like it was only within the last 15 years that it kind of went way past that. And now you see conservatives adopting ideas that were like, went out for most of our lives. That was considered a pretty left-wing idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just interesting seeing like this sort of weird kind of flip of values. Well, saying, like the Democratic Party's become much more hawkish.
I think it's also like the Republican Party has changed a lot. And I'm actually reading ours was The Shining Future. David Leonhardt or Michael Leonhardt or David Leonhardt. I'm blanking on the name. But Leonhardt's his last name. He writes from the New York Times. And it's kind of going through the different waves of mainly the economy and presidents and governments and culture and all that, like through the years, really starting, I think it starts like 1870, like Gilded Age touches on that and goes through the 20th century. Right now I'm in like the 60s, 70s era. No, actually now I'm in like the Reagan era, like 80s, like Reagan's cabinet. And how Republicans were very much just focused on business and economy. Yes, you had culture warriors in some areas. Yeah. And in fact, like you can't, like I really dislike the Republican Party of that time. Yeah. I very like reading this. I very much like the Republican Party of Eisenhower and Nixon more. Like that's just more aligned with where I am. Right. And this was like the Reagan Revolution. I think that is, even if some of it was necessary at the time, I think that has caused a lot of issues that we face today. Yeah. They're called the neoliberals. Yeah. Where even the Democrats are like that now, for the most part. And I think that like you can't blame them. They won blowout elections. Like there was from 68 to 92, there was one Democrat president, right? And Congress go back and forth, but like some blowout elections. So you get like why, you see so many of the parallels. We talked about this since the start of this podcast, but you see the parallels with the 70s, the late 60s and 70s, and then to like the late 20-teens and early now the mid 2020s. It's just, they're so similar in terms of culture, but like I think the Republicans were much more, they gave a lot more credence, and like the wealthy Republicans, there was a lot more of the, they could literally call the Reagan Democrats. They were the suburban Republicans. Basically, these are the people who went to places like Harvard. Yeah. And these were the people who went to Princeton and Stanford and MIT. And now all these people are Democrats. Yeah. So while the ideology, and this was what people would tell me, adults would say all the time to me, they would say, it's like they might have gone to an Ivy League school or just, you know, Michigan and Vanderbilt, whatever. And yeah, they might teach you some crazy shit, but you're going to get out and you're going to go work on Wall Street, or you're going to work in consulting. You're going to work, you know, whatever, like you get out of your system. But too many ways of that went by where then, no, those people were running those firms.
Right.
Like they were running those institutions. And like, so I think that's why now, like to tie it back to this, there were stats come out that like there are more professors at Yale that align themselves with like communism, like literal communism,
right,
far left than there are just like center right.
Right.
But like that's bizarre, like that's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's one of our top institutions. I mean, I'm going to put that in air quotes, top institutions. I don't think a lot of what comes out of there is even good. In fact, Yale is always one of the best law school. I hear that there are firms that won't hire Yale, like purposely do not hire from there anymore. Like, could you imagine?
Yeah.
It's crazy that like as a lawyer, be like, and I feel bad for the actual like sane ones. But the same one that like grads coming out of those schools who then can't get hired because they went to Yale, and they are going to get hired. But anyway, so I think now it's like, and I was looking into this, and to me, this seems so obvious, both in fighting back. That's something I think I picked. Remember we did that draft?
Oh yeah.
And I think I picked Chris Rufo as my number one pick. I can't remember. I think I did, because it's like, this to me is, you obviously have to fight back, because if there's not a counterweight, things are just going to keep going crazier and crazier and crazier. There has to be a counterweight. It can't just be like, well, we're Republicans, we like low taxes. It's like, that doesn't work. Culture is so much more important, especially because I think our economics is such bullshit.
Right.
And you know, a lot of people, they do vote the Clinton, the Clinton dogma, which was James Carville. He was like, that's the economy, stupid, right?
Yeah.
In a way, that's still the case somewhat, but there are a lot of people who quote unquote vote against their economic interests.
Right.
And they're on both sides.
Yeah.
Like there are Democrats who vote for there are people who vote for Democrats who want to tax them more than their Republican would. And there are Republican people who vote for Republicans who want to cut their services more.
Right.
Like there are a lot of people who vote for Trump who are on Medicaid and Medicare, or Medicare, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, like these things that like it's a total realignment.
Right.
And I think the Republicans need to be careful on that, but to stick to this, and I don't like that stuff. I'm much more in the book. Touches on Huey Long, who's one of my favorite politicians of all time. And it's like, do you know what the top tax bracket was during Eisenhower?
Nuh-uh.
Guess.
What the top tax bracket was?
Like the percent. Like what percent do you think they were taxed at?
Oh, I don't know. 30%?
91.
91%?
91% people making over X amount of dollars. I forget what it was.
Holy
that was,
shit.
and that was a Republican. Eisenhower brought it down from 92 to 1% from Roosevelt. Now it's like if you say 36%, 37%, you're like a communist.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not. We just had a totally different vision of what it meant to be an American then, and I think it's really perverse now.
Right.
So anyway, I know I'm going on a tangent here. My point is that I say all that to say that the culture of the right wing has changed. This isn't the William F. Buckley party anymore. Like this isn't that doesn't mean those guys don't exist. Koch brother, like doesn't mean that they don't. The richest person on the planet is, as Crystal Ball likes to say every single episode 50 times, the richest person on the planet gave millions and millions of dollars to the Republican candidate. I understand that. Right. And this is why I think Republicans are being stupid and focusing too much on those things, because that's the minority of your party now in terms of votes. Right. So this to me, fighting back against these institutions that not only like are indifferent to your beliefs, but have contempt for our beliefs, right? Like any sort of right of center beliefs, or even left of center in some ways. Yeah. You know, they don't want like the it's not there for you anymore. Right. So why not fight back? Like, why not retake some of this? Yeah. So that I think that leads me into the next paragraph here. So the first field of battle is higher education. The Trump administration has set its sights on the Ivy League universities, which have not only advanced the ideologies of left-wing racialism, but made them administrative policy. I actually don't like that he's using the term racialism. You should just use racist.
Yeah.
Racialism is what I like when Joe Rogan talks about, like there are racist jokes and there are racial jokes. Racial jokes are not only funny, they're like the bread and butter of a lot of comedians. It's like, the famous Dave Chappelle part is like white people do this and black people do that. It's like, just at its essence. So anyway, many Ivy League presidents see themselves as heirs to the civil rights movement. In fact, they are among the most active practitioners of racial discrimination, stereotyping, and segregation in America today. Shielded by a virtuous public image, elite universities have institutionalized discrimination against disfavored racial groups, implemented DEI policies based on racial rewards and penalties, hired and promoted faculty according to skin color rather than merit, and overseen racially segregated student programs, dormitories, and graduation ceremonies. And there's hyperlinks to a lot of those, but I'm reading off a paper because I'm old school. The Trump administration has ruptured this illusion. In a series of letters to Ivy League presidents, it has threatened to withhold billions in federal funding, citing violations of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and other non-discrimination policies. I think he's going to get into this, so I won't stop here. So about Princeton, but the argument is straightforward. Racial discrimination is wrong, whether it targets whites, Asians, and Jews, or blacks and Hispanics. Any institution that continues to discriminate based on race is ineligible for federal support. I mean,
good.
Like that is just, that's not only right, but politically, that's like extremely popular.
Right.
Like I think if you put that in front on a ballot, right, on a ballot initiative, I think that would win super majorities in almost every state. If it was like, so you can do racial groupings and targets and discriminate against certain groups, but, because of past injustices and because of numbers and we want, equity, all that. Yeah. Or you can do it this way. This is going to win in like Seattle.
Yeah.
This showed in one of the most racially charged elections of my lifetime, 2020, where race was very much on everyone's mind. California, statistically, one of the bluest states, and in that election, right, we're not talking 2024 election where California swung to the right like every other state by a good amount, but it's still actually very, very blue, but swung to the right. No, in an election where California was still very, very blue, they had an affirmative action on the ballot, the same ballot where people were pulling the lever for Joe Biden and Maxine Waters and whoever, and Nancy Pelosi, and it lost by a lot. That's how unpopular this shit is. Because you have Filipinos and Mexicans and black people, like they don't like this shit. Like this is very academic, very elite. And in fact, I bet this does better in majority upper echelon white neighborhoods than in like middle class Latino neighborhoods in California.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah,
that was one of the few shining spots during the 2020 election where it was like, cool that Californians did something right.
Right. Yeah. You don't get it right very often, but when you do, I want to talk New Jersey. Okay. So critics have called this approach weaponizing civil rights law, but civil rights laws have always been a weapon. It's just that conservatives have finally decided to wield them. The Ivy League's presidents are struggling to understand and respond to the moment. Columbia University interim president Katrina Armstrong, caught in the crossfire between the state and the academy, conceded to Trump's demands and quickly resigned under pressure. Princeton president Christopher Gruber, who has presided over one of the most racially discriminatory academic institutions in the country, go New Jersey, has tried to cast himself as a hero resisting President Trump.
That's funny.
Yeah, I think he's going to talk about it here, but if not, maybe it's one of the hyperlinks. I've been engaged in an arm's length debate with Gruber through our respective appearances. on the New York Times podcast. I might listen to those, during which he invoked my name as an enemy and to which I responded in kind. After carefully listening to his position, I've concluded that he understands neither the argument against him nor, frankly, his own. Ice Gruber claims to be defending a noble cause, America's civil rights tradition. In reality, he is defending his university's policies of racialist discrimination. I think that people like Ice Gruber, like, I don't know this guy.
Yeah.
I didn't know his name before I read this article. But like, there seems to me there's a part of academia that feels like they are stuck in 1967.
Yeah.
Like stuck in that politics. They just want to relive that. All you see this with liberal boomers. It's like they just go straight to that playbook, which, by the way, one thing I learned as an adult that I didn't learn as a kid was actually how unpopular a lot of that was. Like, did you know that?
The civil rights movement?
Not civil rights movement, not that, but like a lot more of the Vietnam stuff. And I don't mean like, oh, well, of course it wasn't popular in Mississippi. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, broadly across America, New York City and like Boston, like the protest stuff, the crazy student stuff.
Yeah.
This stuff wasn't popular. Where boomers talk about it like it was the whole nation. It was just like a bunch of like angry white men who were like keeping us in Vietnam. And look, I'm very open about my foreign policy. Like, I'm a pretty far isolationist. I don't think we ever should have been in Vietnam, period. Yeah. But like culturally, a lot of that stuff, like we see today, it's like, it's not a coincidence that someone who believes, whatever liberal thing, they also have the same exact views on B, C, D, E, F, and G. Like, of course, the Ukraine, of course, Palestine, of course, George Floyd, like every single thing. So like that side of the culture was a minority, like not a 60-40 split even. Like, it was not popular at all. Nixon won the 68 election. By 72, this like I was looking at the 68 election was pretty close popular vote. Yeah, but he won by a lot in the Electoral College. He won 60% of the vote in 1972. We were still in Vietnam. Yeah, people had been through like the 69 protests are notoriously terrible. A lot of the like cities burning. That was all like late 60s, early 70s. Crime was crazy, and Nixon had the big. I just went through every election from 32 to 2024, looking at the statistics. Like, there was barely any that cracked 60%. Wow. Blowouts were usually in the mid 50s, and modern day blowouts like Obama 2008 is like a modern day blowout. He didn't even win 55%. He won like 53%. Whoa. So another thing I noticed Bill Clinton actually never won a majority of Americans. Really? In fact, Clinton has never won a majority of Americans. Oh, yeah. Even though, I didn't know that Bill Clinton, I knew 92 was known for having like the biggest third party presence ever. And he only won like 43%, Clinton. Even in the next election that didn't had the same guy, Ross Perot. Yeah. But 96, like Clinton won by a lot, but he didn't win 50% of the vote, which I didn't realize. Yeah. And this is all just like on my head right now. That's why I'm kind of just like, I'm reading that book and I was looking this stuff up and just kind of going chapter by chapter. But so anyway, point being, I think a lot of people, like, I don't know if Ice Gruber, maybe he became the president of Princeton recently, and he was in the private sector. But I feel a lot of people stay in academia. They feel stuck in that era and they don't adapt, and they just always give in to like the furthest left, because in their eyes, perhaps they're right about some of this stuff. In the 60s, being on the far, like they actually were on the right side, quote unquote, of history on some of these things, where it wasn't popular, even a lot of the civil rights stuff. But now this stuff is crazy, and it's not civil rights. It's bizarre, idiosyncratic, academic, alienating social politics. But they're so afraid of their legacy not being on the quote unquote right side of history that they just go with it. Right. And they look at it's like, well, I was a student at Berkeley in 1969 and we were on the right side of history. Well, even though I think a lot of the shit they did was also horrible, what they did to our GIs and whatnot. But then these students now in 2021, they're just the voice that in 40 years they'll be vindicated. And I don't think that's true. Like we have I don't believe that, like, everything is just, everything's going to be whatever California thinks. That's what the whole population is going to think in years down the line. That's actually not true. Like a lot of stuff, there has been backlashes to a ton of shit. Like all the free love stuff, back to like a lot of that stuff actually was pernicious, dangerous, and huge backlashes for 30 years.
Right. Well, also a lot of these progressive boomers, they're in positions of power where they can afford to like let this stuff slide. They don't have to like speak up,
put a low income housing complex on their block and then see how quickly their views change about progressivism.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, where was I? Right here. Ice Gruber argues that federal intervention is illegitimate, but he has no ground to stand on. Consider the historical precedent. If pressed, I'm sure Ice Gruber would concede that President Eisenhower was right to mandate desegregation in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957, and to deploy the 101st Airborne Division to enforce it. What he fails to grasp is that, in this analogy, Princeton is Little Rock Central High School, and he is Governor Orville Faubus. That sounds like a made-up name.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like a Harry Potter.
Racist. Yeah, of like a racist governor in the South, Orville Faubus. Wait, what's the guy? Speaking of Tarantino, side note, who's in Hateful Eight? Walter Goggins. Walton Goggins.
Yeah.
I love that tweet. I was like, someone looked at a precious baby boy and goes, "Let's name him Walton Goggins." I like him. He's a good actor.
Yeah.
He's in The White Lotus. Which have you seen that?
No, but I know everyone's talking about it.
Everyone's talking about it. I don't know. I've heard the third season kind of sucks. Anyway, might not. Under Ice Gruber's watch, Princeton has systematically discriminated on the basis of race and has repeatedly violated the principle of colorblind equality, the core ideal of civil rights law.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because I guess he doesn't talk about it here because it's almost done. I want to talk about when in the first Trump administration, when Princeton was, capitulating to the most wonky ideas about, that was very in vogue at the time, like the race BS. Yeah. They had some statement about how they're, a racist institution. And Betsy DeVos, who's the Department Secretary of Education, right? Department of Education or whatever.
Yep.
They did an investigation because like you're violating civil rights law. If you say that you're like, whatever it was, some sort of, systematically racist is probably what it was, something like that. And that was like one of the fun, and they have to, go through discovery and all of that. Cause like, basically the point being, it was a show of, it was a posturing from both the far left there, Princeton, posturing to their most far left elements, and then posturing on the right too, being like, all right, fine. Like they know what they're saying. Yeah. But all right, like, let's do it. You say that you're racist. Well, we're going to investigate you because you can't do that because you accept federal money. So, which is what all this comes down to. Do
you remember the results of that investigation? Like, did they find that they were like discriminating against white people? And
I don't think so. I don't know exactly what happened. Princeton, I think, might be. I don't know. I don't remember if anything came. Nothing serious if it did, but I will look that up.
Yeah.
All right, whatever happens in the coming months, the terms of this debate have now changed. The president has ensured that the civil rights regime will no longer be a one-way lever to discriminate against oppressor groups, oppressor in quotes, and to embed left-wing ideologies in elite institutions. The right now has the winning argument. Americans support a colorblind society over a race-conscious society by a margin of more than 3-1.
Yeah,
exactly. Even in left-wing states like California and Washington, voters have consistently passed ballot initiatives showing that they reject racial discrimination in college administration. To the extent that we can push this debate forward, the public will increasingly see figures such as Ice Gruber as the villains in America's racial story. The important thing for the Trump administration is not to blink. It should use every tool at its disposal to ensure that America's elite universities adhere to the principle of colorblind equality. If they resist, the president should not hesitate to cut off funding until they comply. Universities are free to operate as independent institutions and reject federal money, but if they choose to accept billions in taxpayer dollars, they must follow the law. Welcome to the new right-wing civil rights regime.
Yeah. I say just stop funding them right now, retroactively.
Right. So that's one thing. So when this came out, and this came out on the 15th, so 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And he also, I don't know if it was him or whatever on Twitter, but like, do you know Hillsdale College? Are you familiar with Hillsdale?
Yeah, it's a Christian conservative college or something, or
Are they Christian? I'm not. They might be. I'm probably, but they're known for just being like one of the most well-known like conservative colleges. Because I remember when I was looking at colleges, I had a big book. It was like the top 368 colleges, and I would look at like most liberal, most conservative, and that was always up there. They're a small school in Michigan, and they don't take federal money, and they haven't done that in a while. And it was like the Obama administration. I forget what they did, but they were pressuring them to, I don't know what sort of action, because it wasn't to remove federal money, because they weren't taking any with Title IX stuff, which now we see has gone completely, gonzo. Luckily, I think there's a move in the other direction now, which is good, but there has to be that counter. Right? People have to fight back, whether it's lockdowns, gender ideology, racial ideology, what other stuff is. For too long, and we've said this since we started this podcast, like the right has just ceded to it and didn't care, and because they had this view that, well, we're going to win on the economy, and the economy is what wins elections, and people like low taxes. And it's like, no, people's with the, and I'm getting like very, layered here, but like, I think with the loss of things like religion and civic institutions that people associated with more, a couple generations ago, this sort of stuff has become people's ideology, cultural things. It's the moms who take their children, the upper middle class moms who take their children to drag queen story hour. That's like going to mass for them. That's like it's a show, and some people do that. Some people go to church to be seen. Some people go to temple or the madrasa or whatever, like to be seen. I think that's the same thing with like a lot of liberal people and conservatives too, in some ways, but they tend to be more religious and still have that. But like this became their, what was it? Jonathan Haidt is like, everyone has a God-shaped hole in their heart. Like this filled that hole, and they get to be seen, and they're doing, and not only that, but we are right. It's their confirmation that we are right. We're doing the right thing by bringing our child to see a drag queen read Green Eggs and Ham. I think that that animates people, because I think the pessimistic view of this is like, they're the have and have nots in terms of economy. We're, regardless, like either we're doing really well, we're going to stay doing really well, or not doing really well, and we can't do very well. So we're going to latch on to cultural things. And it's more tangible, and you can be a part of that group, whatever it is, anti-abortion, pro-abortion, whatever it is. So anyway, I do, and that being said, I do think the secularism is on the decline a little. I know a lot of stuff everyone's posting about Catholics, like young people and religion
getting more religious.
And I think that also has to do with, that's just the next generation of like, well, we didn't really like religion, or like there was the millennials who don't really like religion, but we saw what happened to them, and they became all cringe and liberal, and we like the community and the ballast of religion, whatever that is. I'm a Catholic. I like hearing that. I also think like, hey, not everything Catholics do are great. So just be realistic about stuff. The Catholic Church is a flawed institution too, even though I belong to it. I am interested in seeing what's going to go on here. The other thing I want to talk about, we're like 40 minutes. I was doing some research before this. So I'm going to put you on the spot again, ask you to guess, but don't, like, you could be way off, because I was way off.
Okay.
What do you think Harvard's endowment is?
200 million a year.
Well, don't think of it as a year, because it's not like an endowment's like all the money they get from donations and then capital gains and dividends. So like, it's like a big fat chunk of assets and money, and like, what do you think that is? Not like, what do they get every year?
I'll say $1 billion.
I was thinking like around that.
Hmm.
Dude, it's $51 billion.
What the shit?
That's more
Seriously?
than the GDP. I was looking up like countries. Like that's more than the GDP of like a lot of countries.
Where's that money going? Well, I think we know where a lot of that's going.
Yeah. That's a lot of bullshit. And again,
Yeah.
the counter to everything we're saying is like people are like, oh, well, these schools actually do a lot of good. It's just not what you're seeing. It's like, okay, like I want us to be top tier research, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't want us to be some troglodyte country of like Bronze Age pervert stuff. Like I don't like that. I like being advanced. I like, having the best of things, which I don't think we do all the time, but I want to attract that.
Yeah.
Why can't we just have that and not the crazy shit? Like it's not like they have to go together.
Right.
So that $51 billion, which is the most out of any school. Number 2 is Yale. I think 3 is Princeton's like 4. One of it's like basically who you would expect. Notre Dame is up there, top 10. That's all the Catholics.
Yeah.
But like why? So first of all, why isn't every student just getting free tuition?
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying, like, you have to look at it. It doesn't mean they have $51 billion to give out. That's not how it works.
Right.
But you could easily cover every single student.
Right.
Like not even close. And then like those rich students, I mean, I'm a big proponent of like just make it free for everyone.
Yep.
Attract the best and brightest.
Mhm.
And the rich families will still give fucking money.
Yeah.
Like they'll still do it. They still want their names on shit. They still want to say that they gave money to Harvard. Like I just don't get it. And then the other part is what percent, I don't know if you saw this. And again, don't worry if you're like way off.
Yeah.
What percent of Harvard students do you think are international?
10%.
27.
Okay.
Why are a quarter of students at our most prestigious university? I mean, I think most people would say, asked 100 Americans, what's our most prestigious university? I bet you 65%, 65 would say Harvard, maybe 70% would say Harvard.
Yeah.
Why is a quarter of that not Americans?
I don't know.
Well, I do know part of that answer is that those students all pay full tuition.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So, because those aren't, they like to say diversity, this, diversity, that. Yeah, they're getting the Nigerian surgeon's son. They're getting the, Chinese, whatever their Wall Street is, right?
Right.
Well, like they're not getting a lower middle class kid from Ghana. Like that's just not happening. They're getting very wealthy people who are then paying full tuition to go to Harvard instead of giving full tuition to, let's say, a lower middle class black kid from Harlem or a poor Filipino kid from the Valley or something, like or lower middle class Filipino kid from the Valley, something like that.
Right.
I'm just like, this seems so obvious to me, and it shows that this is such like this isn't about educating Americans. Like, and again, the argument would be, all right, well, a lot of those students will stay here. Fine, but I still think the point of our university is, yes, I'm not saying have no international students.
Sure.
You want to attract some of the best from around the world, but I think part of it is also keeping, educating Americans and giving us the best and giving those people the best, chances at whatever, like improving our country.
Right. So do you see any risks of this movement that Christopher Rufo is a part of like maybe going too far? Definitely. I mean, so I don't, we as we've kind of talked about in some recent episodes of, Fire has been getting fired up about some Trump administration overreaches regarding free speech.
Sure.
And look, the article by Christopher Rufo here, pretty much everything in there, I was very much like, yeah, I'm in favor of that.
Yeah.
But I also, it's and going back to a more colorblind approach to academia, of course I'm in favor of that, but I also wonder if that can go a little too far in the other direction.
I definitely do. I definitely do, because I think that's just the nature of people.
Yeah.
I think people will, give them an inch, they take a mile. I think that's especially true in politics. People start to feel, indestructible. Like I think that happens. You see that a lot in like primaries, whether it's a deep red district or deep blue district. It's like whoever goes the farthest to the extreme, they end up saying shit that they then regret in general elections. Again, both sides do it. So yeah, I do think, I think it'll take a while. You have to remember where we got, it's like 50 years.
Yeah.
Right? Like this started in the 60s, and a lot of people don't realize tenure was, this is because this completely flipped, was to protect liberal professors back in like the Red Scare era, where there were actually conservative professors. That was still a thing, and it was to protect the liberal professors from being fired for having lefty views. Right. Can't imagine that now. Like now it's the exact opposite. But a lot of things, you see this happen. You see, Patriot Act, right? That was to stop Muslim people, and now it's used more against white people, like right-wing extremists or whatever, extremists in quotes. Same, like all those Muslims weren't actually terrorists; they were just fucking losers who then the government tricked into, whatever. Anyway, some were terrorists. So yeah, I think it's going to take a while to get there.
Right.
That being said, it was like 50 years to there to be a legit backlash. But things were also slower then. Like culture is so sped up now. Like everything is seen everywhere. So if you start having crazy shit start happening on like a right-wing scale at schools, it'll be in the public consciousness much quicker.
Right.
But I also think, like, what were the biggest issues last year? It was like Palestine stuff. Yeah. I don't think we're near anywhere. And there are very, very right-wing schools, like Liberty University, for instance, where like, I would hate to go there. Like, I wouldn't want to be a student there. It sounds crazy. Yeah. But they exist. Yeah. Like Hillsdale, like that's existed for a long time. I don't. What happens at Hills? Like you never see a gay person or a racial minority or something, like anything happening there. You only see this at these big prestigious schools.
Right.
So, but we'll see. We'll see. Have you heard about like some small college in Florida that he basically did like a hostile takeover of?
Yeah, he and Ron DeSantis, they kind of teamed up. Yeah.
It was like this small liberal arts school, and I can sympathize with that. I went to a small liberal arts school. This was like a really even smaller than my school. Yeah. And they basically took over some of it did seem scummy. Where it's like, look, you want to take over a school, get rid of the lefty bullshit, that's fine. But like it was like crazy baseball scholarships for people who didn't even play baseball, like really kind of weird. And I think it's that kind of shit where it's going to turn people off. Blackton reported, and this was like 2 years ago, I think. Blackton reported an episode on it that seemed pretty scummy. It was like, look, if you stick to what you're talking about in this article, I think this is a winner. Like people are going to, like he said, it's like wins super majorities in blue areas. Like this is just immigrants come here. Chinese immigrants in San Francisco don't want racialized schools. Like they want the best and brightest going because they focus on academics. Like that's part of it. So that's how this whole thing started. The whole affirmative action case at Harvard, that was with Asian students. And when he talks about,
I do worry that framing it as a right-wing movement or a conservative movement, I wonder if, even if their end goals are still widely lauded and agreed upon, I worry about framing it as a right-wing or conservative movement. Because I mean, there are a lot of people who I think, we're always, pretty left-leaning and registered Democrats, but who voted for Trump, especially in the latest election. But for them, it's like, I voted for Trump because I'm sick of what's going on with the left, but I'm still not a Republican. Like I'm still don't consider myself a conservative. Like there's still a little bit of radioactivity with anything considered right.
So, I see. I don't disagree with that. I think probably better framing might be like push to the center. Like again, messaging is important. Like, look, we're trying to just pull back to the center. Like it's gotten so. I think a lot of people, if you want to say right wing, I don't know, man. Like some right wing stuff is just kind of tainted. Like people still associate the like religious right and the Reagan right or whatever. Some people are very attracted to that, but I don't know. I think enough people. I don't disagree with it turning people off, but I think the people care and look at the substance. Like that's what's more important. It's like, okay, like, yeah, I'm just a moderate, or like I'm a moderate Democrat, but they're nuts. Like the left wing stuff is nuts. Okay, I'm gonna team up with the right on this stuff. That's like most like the free press, like the free press, capital F, capital P, are those people.
Right.
Like I don't know what the breakdown would be, but I would think, I mean, I started off as that. Like when we first started, like I was voting Democrat early 2020. Like I was still before the George Floyd stuff and COVID stuff. I was like researching like, ooh, who am I going to vote for in the primary? Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren. Like by the election in 2020, I was voting Republican. I didn't vote for Trump. I couldn't do that.
Right.
But I like that's how quickly it changed. Right. So I mean, a lot of those people like, and that's where this all came out of. So I don't know. Is it gonna go too far in that? Yeah, of course it is. I'm pissed off. I think the administration's doing a terrible job.
Yeah.
I think they had mandates on like a handful of basic shit, and they're just handling so stupidly that I'm not going to go into a whole tariff thing or immigration thing, but like I think it's just gonna turn people off when like, no, you had this.
I know.
Like, we had it. It was so easy. All you had to do was not be stupid, and you're being stupid. Yeah. Picking the dumbest fight. So I don't know. I won't get into that stuff. We'll say that for another day. You want to do anything else on that?
No, I think that's it'll be interesting to see how this pans out.
Yeah. Also, a last thing on this is I just think we, as in millennials, I think we were the apex, the pinnacle of like college. Like I think Gen Z is going to be more
trade schools.
Like I think like around, I think it was 37% of the adult population had college degrees. I think that maybe 40. I think that's going to be the height, and I think it's going to go down. So people are saying it's not worth it. Like people are getting in tons of debt, and it's like, look, if you can't get a job at Yale, like out of Yale because of Yale, like not because of the market, like because of Yale, where you would have done better if you went to BU, like that's backwards. Like something has to change. But anyway, all right, you want to do a Reckless Rex?
Yeah.
You want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So last Thursday, I went to a metal show with a friend of mine.
Yeah, what really called again?
Oh yeah, it was Napalm Death and the Melvins. So there's two different bands,
right? I actually told that to Morgan. I was like, yeah, Joe's that night. He was like, oh, how's Joe? I'm like, he's gonna see a metal show, like Napalm Death and the Melvins, not the same band. Although that is a sweet band name.
It is, yeah. It's I think one of the coolest names I've ever heard for a band was Grandmaster Ass Blaster and the Pimp Slap Crew.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. So I went to a show in downtown LA at a really cool old theater called the Belasco. Downtown LA has a lot of cool sort of Art Deco-y theaters that have been around for like 100 years.
I know the Belasco, but I think there's also a Belasco in New York.
I think so, maybe. Because we didn't go when you were here.
No, yeah, I mean not personally. Like I know the name. Like I know the Whiskey A Go Go. Like,
right. So the opening act was just some old guy with like a synthesizer, and he just kind of did some weird spooky shit. It's funny, like it sounded like the introduction to a heavy metal concert. Except it was like 30 minutes long. So it's just like an intro to nothing. Like it just kind of spooky and atmospheric, and then there was like a microphone, and he would kind of like chant some weird stuff into it. But it's all just like, okay, when's the band gonna come out? And it's like, oh, he's the actual like opening act. He's not just the intro guy. So
I'm all for super weird opening. That's when like that's a little hors d'oeuvre, like a little appetizer of like, okay, I don't want that for 2 hours, but I'm all for like crazy weird opening acts.
Yeah. But it was all right. You know, it was creepy and atmospheric, but it lasted for 30 minutes. I was like, okay, come on, let's go. And then the third band, the second band was some stoner sludge metal band called Weed Eater.
What's sludge metal?
Sludge metal, it's similar to Black Sabbath, where it's like kind of thicker, chunkier, just kind of psychedelic, slower metal. And then the Melvins came out, and they were good. I'm not a huge fan of the Melvins, but I've seen them. I've listened to a couple of their albums. They're pretty cool. They're more kind of alternative / sludge metal. And I saw them before a couple years ago, and they put on a good show. And then Napalm Death came out. Napalm Death is interesting. So they're actually from the UK. They're from England, and they were the first grindcore metal band, which is like, I mean, it's probably like metal doesn't get much heavier than that. It's just super fast. They actually coined the term blast beats, which is just like super fast.
Have you ever heard like Norwegian black metal?
Yeah, it's similar to that. At least in terms of like musically, instrumentally, but the vocals are different. Napalm Death is a little more death metal leaning, which is funny. But it's funny because so they're called Napalm Death, but they're actually very left wing. Yeah, they're very anti-war, and they're very it was a good show, but in between the singer would kind of go on an anti-Trump rant, and I'm like, even if I agreed with it, I was just sort of like, I'm here for a metal show. Don't lecture about politics, just rock. And also the funny thing about Napalm Death is that I think that they set a record for like the world's shortest song. Like it's just like a second long. So their first album has like 27 songs. Like some of the songs are less than a minute long. They're just like super. I mean, it's just like a huge wall, like a bulldozer of sound. Just super concentrated chaos. But it's pretty cool. It's funny, and then there's like a huge mosh pit right in front of us. I didn't get into it.
You didn't muck it up?
No, I didn't. No,
you stopped moshing in your 30s.
I know, yeah. But still, it was a fun show. It was it's definitely a show that you have to wear earplugs to. Yeah. I mean, just so you don't rupture your eardrums, because when they were in, it's like you can hear the band perfectly. Yeah. But when it's not, it's just you're gonna die. So yeah, it's super loud. But yeah, it was fun. So that's my Reckless Wreck. Melvins and Napalm Death are pretty fun, cool bands. We're checking out. So
I did listen to, who was your last Reckless Wreck? The band?
Oh yeah, the Blackwater Fever.
Yeah, I listened to some of them.
Yeah,
they were good.
Yeah.
I can't name a song, but they're good. I don't know if I'm gonna listen to Napalm. I like heavy metal. I really do, actually.
Napalm Death is very much.
I don't like the black metal stuff. I can't stand it.
Yeah. They're very extreme, but interesting. I mean, you dip your toe into it for like 30 seconds. You're like, okay, I know, because almost all the other bands sound exactly like that.
Yeah.
But what about you, homeboy?
I'm going in a different direction. I'm recommending my Reckless Wreck is a book. You may have heard of it. It's called The Last Temptation of Christ. Oh yeah, they made a book out of that movie. They did. I actually watched the Scorsese. I'd seen it as a kid.
Yeah.
But I watched it this week. The movie the Scorsese directed. And
he's doing another Jesus movie too, isn't he?
I don't know. Is he? He did a thing on Fox Nation called The Saints, where it's like he has a little talk in the beginning. I think I'm assuming he directed them, but like it's like Saint Joan of Arc, John the Baptist. Those are the two I've watched so far. Some others are okay. Like the quality's, it's fine. I like it more for like the information. But Last Temptation of Christ was extremely controversial at the time. And might even still be like, I get why. I shouldn't say I don't get why, but to me, like Kazantzakis, so the writer is Greek. His name Nikos Kazantzakis, who's really famous for also writing Zorba the Greek, which is like an iconic Greek book.
Yeah.
So, this book was so good. So like I really recommend this to anyone who, like, you don't have to be a Christian. Like it is just so beautiful and well written, and it's so poetic, and I caught myself just like and there's a whole part in the beginning, like I guess a foreword or something, maybe it's at the end, where it talks about like, this is written in a certain style, because it's translated, like it's written in Greek originally, but it's like a certain type of Greek where it's like very I guess poetic really is the best word to say it. It's very flowery, where it's like even like a sheep herder speaks like very beautifully. And I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. I like realism too. I do.
Yeah.
Like I like some like a Cormac McCarthy, right? I don't like his, I've been on record, I cannot stand his aversion of punctuation. I don't get it, but like the writing. But this is like the opposite of that. And it's not the story that you were like told if you went to CCD. That's okay. Like it's, I think so it gets you there, and it is because Jesus, honestly, like I'll just be open, like he has sex in it, or he imagines having sex, like he's in love, like it's that kind of stuff. And he's, well, like even in the very beginning, like everyone knows like Jesus was a carpenter, right? Like everyone kind of knows that. Well, in this book, not only is he a carpenter, like he builds crosses that the Romans used to crucify Jews. Like that, like he's an enemy of the Jews. And it's very, I don't know, it's a long book, but it is so great. Like it instantly became one of my top 10 books of all time. Like really, really recommend this book enough. I can't recommend it enough. It has like a whole twist on Judas. Like Judas, of course, is the villain of the Bible. And it's like this kind of stuff where you can see why, and this was published, I think in the 50s, early 60s, maybe, I can't remember exactly, like why the Catholic Church would be so, and the Greek Orthodox Church too. Like he was excommunicated from his own church. Right. Like they wouldn't let him be buried. And he's from Crete specifically, which is, you know, an island in Greece, part of Greece. Like really crazy. I feel bad for him because he, as a writer, as a person, he was like very left-wing on a lot of stuff, but then he came back around, and like he was kind of always searching for, like, you could tell he's kind of like lashing on to different things, like Nietzsche for a while, but I don't know. I'll end there. But really, like, if you're Catholic or even any type of Christian, I think you'll love this book. If you're not, I think you'll also love this book. Like, it is just such a great read, and it's so dramatic and beautiful, and like really just kind of like a penetrating book that I was surprised. Like, I thought it was going to be a lot more, I guess, like it's definitely anti-dogma in a way, right? But it's not anti-Christian at all. Like he gives the prologue, and he's like, he came to tears writing this book. Like he was profoundly Christian when he at this time when he died. So anyway, that's it. That's my recommendation. If you have the time to read it, definitely read this book.
Well, this will please you. So the Scorsese movie that I told you that he's working on, so it's called A Life of Jesus, and it's based on the novel by Shusaku Endo. Aren't you a fan of him?
Yeah. Well, he wrote Silence, which also Scorsese also did, which is probably my favorite like Christian movie. Like it's actually one of those movies. I think the movie is actually better than the book, where it's not the case. Like Last Temptation of Christ, it's fine. Like it's fine. Sure. I think it's good. And I could see how if you didn't read the book, I think you might like that more because it is so different, right? Than like The Passion of the Christ, for instance, which is just like a like very violent, like, but by the book, literally. Where when you compare the book Last Temptation of Christ to the movie, not even close. Like movie's good, fine. Book is, I read a lot of books. It's like a top book for me. Yeah. So maybe that's why. So Silence, where Scorsese's Silence, I love both, but I actually enjoyed the movie more. Like I watch clips of Silence on YouTube, like a couple of clips, fairly regularly. And I still find them, to me, Silence, I know I'm going on here, to me, the book, the story of Silence, which is about the Portuguese Jesuit priest going to Japan, it is like the quintessence of Christianity, like what happens in that story and why I think it's such a beautiful religion and a concept that I've talked about on this podcast. So that, to me, I would say watch the movie Silence, but read the book The Last Temptation of Christ. If you're only going to do one of each, if you're like movie or book, I'm only doing one. I recommend reading both books, watching both movies. But Scorsese's definitely going through like a religious thing, and he always has. But I think as he's gotten older, because he's doing The Saints, he's doing this. I didn't know Endo because he was Japanese and he converted to Catholicism.
Yep.
I didn't know he wrote. I didn't know he wrote another book outside of Silence that was about Christianity.
I thought that was his whole thing. I thought that was like his Harry Potter. Like he just.
Oh, I didn't know that. I just knew him for Silence, which is a great book.
Well, Miles Teller and Andrew Garfield are rumored to be in it. So
Andrew Garfield was in Silence.
Yeah.
So very, very cool.
Yeah.
And also Mel Gibson's doing the
Passion of the Christ
2, which is like
the resurrection. Right?
Like, okay, how long is that movie going to be? He comes back, he gives a few more sermons, and then he goes up. That's it? Is it a show? Like, what else is going to happen? I'm super excited for this. I don't know if it's a series or a movie that Gibson's doing about the Siege of Malta. Dude, I'm a history guy. The Siege of Malta is one of the most interesting. Basically, this tiny Christian island in the middle of the Mediterranean stopped the Ottomans from like taking over Europe. And it's unbelievable story. And so I'm very excited for that.
Oh, you mean the Great Siege of Malta?
Yes, that one.
Stupid. Yeah, I was confused there, dude. From 1565. Yeah, I know all about that one. Yeah, I know. All right, man. Well, follow us and donate to us. Give us your money. We really like money.
Definitely give us your money.
And give us your follows.
Good cause.
Yeah, our
buy some beer on PayPal. I drink non-alcoholic beer now, but I'll still use it for that.
I'll drink twice as much beer to make it.
I'll drink twice as much beer.
And stay reckless.
Fight the crits.